I think that the first time I saw this was when I was a teenager in the 80s. And I think it is the first Rauschenberg that I ever saw. And as a sculptor, I'm a sculptor, but I'm very interested in always talking about the edge between sculpture and architecture, the edge between sculpture and painting, the edge between sculpture and the moving image. So this was actually a really, really important painting / sculpture for me, because it really showed me what that discussion is. It's so precise. It does so many things at once. This painting, for me, is so much about gravity, the fact that everything in it is being pulled down in real time, in real space, that the paint is dripping, that the pillow is sagging. If you look at the bottom half of it, it's really almost all the quilts. It was just these drips. And then as you go sort of through, it's almost like a horizon line. It's very much like a landscape, too, in that you see the paint, you see the painting hand. But then you think about knitting. You think about scraps, you think about the brush, that kind of touch. You think about tucking, you think about the hand. Of course, the drawing in this is very important. You think about all of these different ways of touch and creation in very, very different ways, in very diverse ways, all knitted together. One of the very fundamentally important things about Rauschenberg, and he talked about this a lot, was how he played with the intersection of art and everyday life, and he would always play in that sort of space in between. And one of the things that's nice about this piece is that its identity as a painting or as a very familiar object that we know is something you immediately are caught in between, right? And so you start to think about things that you probably should be thinking about or could be thinking about in any artwork, like the height that it's hung, right? Because you have this sense of trying to want to move into it. So you start thinking, well, why is it hung that high? Why isn't it on the floor? Why doesn't it rest? Why shouldn't we put it horizontal? Like, these are just fundamental questions that you could ask about any artwork. But this simplicity of the proposal of making a painting into a bed or a bed into a painting, that flipping is a very, very simple, fundamental idea, I think, in Rauschenberg. This idea of, I don't know where in the process it is, and that process is completely flipping. Is it something I found in everyday art, that I made art, or was it art that then became everyday? This is about a bed. It's how a bed acts in real space, where you have sex, where you die, where you give birth. It has this incredible intimacy of a site that is then sort of revealed. The greatest gift of being an artist is that you can actually have a conversation through a work without being there, that when you leave work behind, you're actually having a conversation way beyond yourself. And I think that, for him, he loved, and he wanted people to see that he was doing that in real time. And there's a kind of privacy of the conversation that becomes public when you see it. And I do think that kind of intimacy is very specific to Rauschenberg, a willingness to be tender, to be intimate, to share kind of a very interior urgency, an urgency to share a kind of interior self publicly. So I actually made a piece that was completely an homage to this piece, which is a piece that was also a painting, but that you turn the volume up on sculpture. So what would be the formal properties that you would turn up? You would turn up gravity, you would turn up sculpture in the round. You would do everything that you can do in a sculpture that you can't do in a painting. You would make it portable, you would make it site-specific wherever it went. You would make it always in conversation with the architecture, not just with the wall. You would kill the frame. Hammock was really a direct homage to bed. So it was, in many ways, in my mind, it did things like the bed. It had things about the intimacy of a location where one sleeps, where someone rests. It had the figurative nature of it feeling like a place that was somewhere you could sit, somewhere you could lie down, but also was really harnessed this idea of negative space and of the air around it, so that it was almost as there as it wasn't there, that it could almost disappear in a way, that the frame of it spilled out in many ways into the space around it in a way that you can't do with a painting. I think that Rauschenberg, very much his persona was as a diplomat, as a poet, as a friend to artists. But I think most importantly, he was rebellious, and while he brought people in, he was constantly undermining the authority of the system he worked in.